Hey guys, Carl and Haynard here again, and I wanted to talk to you today a little bit more about PowerPC Macs, and I'm coming forward today with my own PowerPC Mac, PowerBook G4. This is an April 2004 model, so it's going on 8 years old, and well, it's still hanging in there pretty well. It has a 1.5 gigahertz PowerPC G4 inside with 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, an 80 gigabyte hard drive at 5400 RPM, actually an ATI Radeon 9700 with 64 megs of VRAM. It also has Bluetooth 1 and also Airport Extreme, which is 802.11b and G. So this is a pretty decent PowerBook when they were still making PowerBooks, towards the middle to the end of the cycle. So I want to talk a bit about more how you can maximize the use of your PowerBook and really just what makes a good PowerBook good. So here we go. First off, I just wanted to talk about the design. Obviously this looks a lot like the early MacBook Pros. This design has been around ever since the first 17-inch PowerBook was introduced back in 2003. So it looks good to this day, has a very good industrial appearance. It looks like it could be used in a professional setting to this day. There's really no complaints I have. The biggest problem with this particular construction is while it led at its time for beauty and for durability, today it doesn't hold a candle to the unibody construction in terms of durability. There's a bit of flexibility, especially on the palm rest. You can still push down just a tiny bit, and really the thinness of this aluminum construction makes it prone to warping, so you got to be careful with that. Basically, it's going to be hard to find a model that doesn't have a dent or a lot of scratches. Luckily, mine is in pretty darn good shape, and I got it for a bargain, so I got lucky there. This particular model features the backlit keyboard, which I'm not going to display right now because it's just too bright out. But it also features just the normal trackpad. There's no scrolling trackpad on this model, but there is a workaround, which I'll talk about later. Your standard one-button mouse, and obviously the 15.2-inch display. There's PC card on the side, 2 USB ports, audio in and out, FireWire 800, I believe there's FireWire 400 as well, and DVI. So ultimately, it's still a powerhouse when it comes to the ports. It has most machines really don't do FireWire 400 anymore, and I don't know about you, but I still use FireWire 400 on a daily basis. So this really connects to everything that I have. What I have loaded on here is OS 10.5 Tiger, updated to 10.5.8, as this will show you right there if I zoom in. I am using the OS 10 Tiger background just because I think it looks cool. But yeah, this is definitely a Leopard machine through and through. So, the design ultimately I think is one of the most beautiful Apple's ever done. I think it's underrated, but mostly marred by the fact that, well, they're not the most hardy machines anymore. So there's some special features that I still like to this day that work really well. The ambient light sensors almost work too well. They work to a T. You just gotta cover these up, and I don't know if you can tell, but it goes down right away. So it really is pretty handy to have that and make sure it really works. The backlit keyboard's not quite as bright as, say, a modern MacBook Pro, but it's still decent, and when it's in a dark room, it's perfectly usable. So that's good. I personally don't have much of a use for a backlit keyboard because I can touch type, but still, it's nice to have. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is a slot load super drive. This model doesn't come with dual layer capability, so that might be an issue for some people, but the last PowerBooks, and I believe the revisions before that, they came with dual layer capability. So I want to talk a little bit also about kind of the optimizations you can make if you're going to use OS X Leopard. I would definitely use OS X Leopard on this particular model, just because it offers that capability of compatibility with modern standards. It's more secure, and things like Time Machine and iTunes 10 actually, and Modern iLife, they're all really important to my workflow. I don't even think the latest version of Finale works with Tiger, so it still works just fine with Leopard. I'm going to hop into my settings app here, and what you'll find is I have 2 extra plugins installed. These would be iScroll 2 and secrets. So let's hop into iScroll here. I'm going to remain zoomed in. Basically what this does is it enables two-finger scrolling on these older trackpads that don't use the newer standard. So basically all you do is you tick enable sensitivity and set these to your liking, and you can even have horizontal scrolling too, which is pretty cool. And basically you can set these preferences to how you like them, how sensitive or how insensitive you want it to be, and basically you can duplicate the functionality of the newer machines. Circular scrolling is interesting because basically it lets you navigate through a page like you were using an iPod. So you would scroll around like this and it would actually let you go down, which is not how I'd want to use my computer, but it works. We also have clicking functions. Unfortunately, it doesn't enable two-finger clicking by just tapping on the trackpad. By tapping, it just does one-finger click, which is okay with me, because what this will do is if I enable secondary mouse button for this two-finger click function, all I have to do is put two fingers on the trackpad and then click with the button. And it's actually really natural, and most people use their trackpads like that anyway, so it works fine for me. And again, here's the tap function. You can set that for all you really want. So that's really cool, and the best thing is it even plays nicely with the built-in trackpad settings within Leopard itself. So as you can tell, I had to fiddle with the tracking speed to get it right, and double-click speed and scrolling speed, and then it installs this little preference pane here to allow two fingers to scroll and to allow horizontal scrolling. So it's a really nice feature to have. I'm going to demonstrate this now. I'm going to go to Safari real quick. I'm going to minimize this, and let's go to Reddit once it loads. So let's minimize system preferences. So here we go. We have Reddit loading up right now. Sorry if my internet seems a little slow. I've been having issues with Comcast lately, so it's not a reflection of the PowerBook. Anyways, two fingers on this old trackpad, and it works just great. So no real issues there. And as a bonus, if you're used to the natural scrolling in Mountain Lion and Lion, you can invert the access for that too. So that's really nice. So anyways, going back to system preferences, another great feature to have is secrets. Now I know what you're thinking. Okay, I know all about secrets. Well, still, it's a nice thing to have because the graphics on these older systems can kind of be bogged down by the more demanding user interface of Leopard. For example, Leopard basically has VSync turned on by default, which can really destroy frame rates, and also the 3D dock is a big controversy for some people, so I'm just going to put my dock down to the default position, which is the bottom, if I can click it. And you'll see we have the 3D dock, and for most people it's a little too choppy for their liking, especially when magnifying. I personally don't have a use for it, but yeah, it's not the choppiest thing in the world for me, but for a lot of people it is. Anyways, I don't use the dock on the bottom because I need all the vertical screen real estate that I need. But to demonstrate this, right here, the top secrets is to switch the dock appearance from 3D glass to 2D black. And it'll prompt you to restart the dock, so let me just get this Reddit window out of the dock. And I'll click that, and bam, you have a 2D dock, which is a lot more smooth. So it doesn't personally affect me because I don't use my dock on the bottom. I personally always use it on the left because it gives me more screen real estate that way. I don't have to truncate web pages and documents. Basically, I can just do this. But anyways, this is what I like. So in addition to that, you can go through here and make little tweaks as well. One of the most important tweaks you can make is actually to disable VSync. Now this requires a little more experience, and it's better if you have Xcode installed to do this because it gives you a plist editor. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop into Macintosh hard drive, go to library. I'm going to scroll down here to preferences right here, and you're going to want to look for com.apple.windowserver.plist. Basically, this lets you change the preference lists. And since I have Xcode installed, it's going to open for me with property list editor. So that's fine with me. If it opens with text edit for you, basically you're going to want to look through what it says, but try to use property list editor if you can. So what I have here is the property list itself in a more attractive package. So that looks pretty nice if I could zoom into it. There we go. So anyways, what we have here is my boot I'm not going to mess with. The compositor, I'm going to hop in here real quick. And you'll have a setting in here for deferred updates. This means VSync. So you're going to want to set that to 0. Next, we have display layout left to right and main on internal. Just ignore those. Display sets, ignore these. Then you're going to go into GL Compositor, which controls the OpenGL and Quartz GL stuff. So you're going to want to enable the Quartz 2D Extreme. This basically leverages your graphics card for rendering of the user interface. It doesn't put as much on the CPU, so that's a good thing to have. And I personally disable Quartz GL. I get better performance that way, and it makes the user interface a little more stable. So that's what I like. So when you apply these settings, it'll prompt you for a save, and then you're going to want to restart your computer, and you'll magically find that all your user interface aspects go really smoothly now. It's basically just because it's removing unnecessary rendering. You don't really need VSync on an LCD to screen anyway, so it's really not a big deal. So those are a few small tweaks to the system you can make to really increase your performance. Now there's a few applications out there that will reduce the footprint of OS X. Unfortunately, OS X Leopard has to be branded as the most beloved version because it's the only universal binary that OS X has really had. So as a result, we have a lot of applications and system core aspects that are really in 2 versions of code, Intel and PowerPC. So what you're going to want to do is download applications that will help you slim down the system and get rid of unnecessary files. So what I use myself is XSlimmer, which goes through all my applications and lets me slim them down. So I'm going to close my property list editor real quick. If you click Genie here, what it's going to do is it's going to scan your application folder, and I use the most up-to-date version of XSlim that runs on PowerPC. I believe it's 1.9. I'm going to hop in here. 1.8.2. So same thing. Really, they do the same function, and their blacklist is updated enough for OS X Leopard. So what it's going to do is it's going to go through your applications, and it's going to reduce the languages to your native language, and it's also going to reduce binaries to only the best kind of binary for your system, which for me is PowerPC 32-bit on a G4. It also does backwards compatibility with G3 code, so that's good. So anyways, I have 170 megabytes I could save just because I updated some old iLife things. So hey, that's a good thing to have. Another app to consider, which I don't have on me right now, is Monolingual, which goes a little deeper into the system. So just look up Monolingual for OS X in Google, and it'll come right up, and you can download it and select what you'd like to delete. It goes into the system, deletes complete libraries for languages and inputs and actual code from the system itself, and not just applications. So that's handy. Now, in addition to all these systems things, there's some application things you can do to reduce your footprint. I'm a musician, in case you guys do not know, so I really have a lot of music, and it takes up a lot of space. On my iMac, I have a good 50 gigabytes of music, so it takes up a lot of space, and I have even more video. So I have iTunes Match to bridge the gap. I only have a 80 gig hard drive in this system, and with 50 gigs of music, it really just doesn't mix. So surprisingly to me, iTunes Match works on this legacy system just fine. So what it's doing right now is it's just scanning my library for any changes, which is not going to find because I don't have local files. But as you can see, in my library here, I have all of my files ready for access at any time. And if you live in a Wi-Fi enabled environment, this is going to be a lifesaver. iTunes isn't going to be slow, and really this works seamlessly. It predicts what song's going to play next, so there's no hang between your songs when it's downloading it, and I really love iTunes Match for this. So I'm just going to pop in here, and as you can see, I have the Brandenburg Concerto No. 5 in D, and you can see a little icon here that says download from the cloud, but I don't have to do that. I can just double click it and it'll play once it establishes my crappy internet connection. And there it goes. Anyways, that's iTunes Match. working with an older G4, which I think is great. You need to have iTunes 10 installed in the most recent updates. So if you have a G4 that runs Leopard and you use iTunes Match, that's a killer feature for me. So I hope you guys found this kind of informative. I love my G4 PowerBook, and of course I'd love to have a new Retina MacBook Pro or something a lot faster, but you know, this gets the job done. It runs all my files. As you can see, the display is nice, the keyboard's nice. In fact, it's one of my favorite keyboards on any Apple product ever, and really it's done me well. The final thing I really wanted to talk about is how the device works itself. I get about 4.5 hours of battery life with the machine because I have an a third-party battery installed. If you can see here, this battery is from NewTek, and it has an increased capability and capacity, and it has a longer life than your standard Apple battery, so that's good. If you can, upgrade your RAM to a maximum capacity, and you'll practically fly around the system. I only upgraded to 1.5 gigs just because my system doesn't need to do that much. But if you're going to use a G4 PowerBook, go all the way. Ultimately, I think these are really good systems, and I think you guys would really benefit from making the tweaks I demonstrated. There's one last thing I wanted to talk about, of course. And the big thing for everybody, go away iTunes, is YouTube. That's the biggest thing anyone talks about with being a problem on the G4. Well, I'm going to show you something real quick. I'm going to hop onto YouTube, wait for my crappy connection to render, and let's see. I want to watch It's My Natural Color because he's a pretty cool guy. Now normally you would use Adobe Flash for this function, but wait, what's going on? This doesn't look like Flash. Basically what I'm using is a Safari plugin that nullifies Flash.
I thought I'd make a vlog to share my weird mood with you because my weird mood,
and once it loads, it runs smooth.
Some of you might think it's a bit sad, but I don't. I'm on my spinny chair, just in case you were wondering. Sorry about the lighting.
So as you can see, there's well, that's a weird face. You can see there's YouTube running smoothly on a G4, and you're probably, okay, how do you do that? That doesn't normally work. Flash is supposed to be crap. Well, Flash is crap, so I decided to get rid of Flash altogether. What you'll need for this to work is Safari 5.0.6, which is the latest version, and it supports extensions. So we're going to hop into Google here and look up click to Flash for Safari. Now, the click to Flash plugin that was originally made by the original programmer has actually been discontinued. However, if you see here, there is another person continuing on his legacy. It's by hoyois.github.com, and this guy is continuing where the other has left off. So we're going to load this webpage. As you can see, you can download Click to Flash, and what it'll do is it'll automatically convert any Flash video from YouTube into a easy-to-play, QuickTime file that works right in the browser. So that makes your system a heck of a lot more usable. So anyways, that's all I want to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed that little surprise at the end. And really, I love my G4 and hope to get a lot more life out of it. Maybe I'll get an SSD for it and throw it in there and you'll see how that works. But anyways, let me know if you thought this video was helpful, and give me your opinions. Comment, rate, subscribe.